Folks, grab your popcorn, because the circus is in town, and the ringmaster is none other than the European Central Bank's very own Christine Lagarde. Today, we're diving headfirst into the clown car of economic mismanagement, global elitism, and government-induced recessions. Buckle up, because this story is juicier than a prime rib at a Federal Reserve banquet, and twice as overcooked. Hello, my fellow economic truth seekers, and welcome back to Boss Economics World. I'm your host, the guy who doesn't mince words when it comes to calling out the suits, the ties, and the absolute disasters they've made of our global economy. If you're new here, we're all about exposing the absurdity of economic policies, satirizing the clowns running the show, and, most importantly, arming you, the everyday folks and finance pros, with the knowledge to see through the smoke and mirrors. And boy, do we have a doozy today. Let's talk about the latest drama rocking the elitist halls of global finance. Christine Lagarde, the head honcho of the European Central Bank, ECB, is reportedly plotting her great escape to the cushy, champagne-soaked pastures of the World Economic Forum, WEF. That's right, folks, while Europe teeters on the brink of economic collapse, Madame Lagarde is eyeing the exit, with a swanky villa already reserved at the WEF's Villa Mundi. And if that doesn't scream, I'm bailing on this sinking ship, I don't know what does. Meanwhile, Klaus Schwab, the WEF's now disgraced founder, is spilling the tea to the Financial Times, revealing that Lagarde's takeover was in the works for years. Years, people. While the ECB insists she's fully committed to her term until 2027, the whispers in the corridors of power tell a very different story. Now, before we dive into the juicy details, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What does this drama reveal about the state of our global economy? Spoiler alert, it's a hot mess, and the clowns running the show, governments, central banks, and globalist institutions, are the ones pouring gasoline on the fire. From point to surface, this story uncovers a laundry list of economic issues: elitism in economic governance, central bank mismanagement, the revolving door between public and private power, and, most critically, how government policies are driving us straight into a recessionary abyss. So, let's break it down, boss economic style, with the latest data, examples, and a healthy dose of satire to keep things spicy. By the end, you'll see why Lagarde's potential jump ship is just the tip of the iceberg in this economic clown show. First up, let's talk about the elite revolving door, because nothing screams, I care about the little guy, like reserving a luxury villa at an institution notorious for its Davos parties and caviar dreams. The fact that Lagarde, while still ECB President, was reportedly in talks to take over the WEF as early as 2027, and possibly sooner, shows just how disconnected our economic leaders are from the real world. This isn't just a career move, it's a masterclass in elitism. The WEF, for those who don't know, is the poster child of globalist excess, where billionaires, CEOs, and politicians sip champagne at Davos while preaching stakeholder capitalism to the plebs. And now, Lagarde wants to trade her ECB throne for a WEF crown. It's like watching a captain abandon a sinking ship to join a yacht party. But why does this matter economically? Because it highlights a systemic issue, the revolving door between public institutions like the ECB and private globalist clubs like the WEF erodes accountability and prioritizes elite interests over public good. Lagarde's potential move isn't just a personal choice, it's a symptom of a broader problem where economic policymakers are more loyal to their next cushy gig than to the people they're supposed to serve. And let's not forget, the ECB isn't exactly killing it right now. Eurozone inflation hit 6.1% in October 2025, Eurostat data, while GDP growth is projected to limp along at a pathetic 0.7% for the year, IMF World Economic Outlook, October 2025. Meanwhile, Lagarde's ECB has been criticized for keeping interest rates too low for too long, fueling asset bubbles, and then hiking rates too aggressively, choking off growth. So, while Europe burns, Lagarde's eyeing the exit. Classy. Hey, Christine, quick question, are you packing your bags for Villa Mundi because you know the Eurozone's about to implode? Or is it just because the WEF's caviar budget is bigger than the ECB's? Inquiring minds want to know. Now, let's zoom in on the ECB itself, because Lagarde's tenure has been nothing short of a masterclass in economic mismanagement. Remember, central banks are supposed to stabilize economies, control inflation, promote growth, and prevent financial crises. But under Lagarde, the ECB has been a one-stop shop for policy blunders. Let's break it down with the latest data to show just how badly the ECB, and by extension, the government-backed technocratic elite, has dropped the ball. First, inflation. The Eurozone has been grappling with persistent inflation, hitting 6.1% in October 2025, well above the ECB's 2% target. What's driving this? Supply chain disruptions, energy price shocks, and, drumroll, please, years of ultra-loose monetary policy under Lagarde and her predecessor, Mario Draghi. The ECB kept interest rates at historic lows, negative territory until mid-2023, and pumped trillions into quantitative easing, flooding the system with cheap money. The result? Asset bubbles galore. European real estate prices soared 12% year-on-year in 2024, Eurostat, pricing out young families, while inflation eventually spiraled out of control as supply shocks hit. And what did Lagarde do? She dithered, calling inflation transitory well into 2024, only to panic and slam on the rate hike brakes in 2025, sending borrowing costs skyrocketing and choking off growth. Second, growth, or rather, the lack thereof. The IMF projects Eurozone GDP growth at a measly 0.7% for 2025, with Germany, the bloc's economic engine, teetering on the edge of recession after a 0.1% contraction in Q3 2025, the status. Why? Because Lagarde's ECB, in cahoots with national governments, has failed to address structural issues like labor market rigidities, overregulation, and energy dependency on volatile global markets. Instead, they've relied on monetary gimmicks, cheap money, bond-buying sprees, while fiscal policy has been a mess of austerity nostalgia and half-baked stimulus. The result is a Eurozone economy that's stuck in neutral, with unemployment creeping up to 7.8%, Eurostat, October 2025, and consumer confidence at its lowest since the pandemic, European Commission, October 2025. Hey, Christine, pro tip, if you're going to call inflation transitory, maybe don't wait until it's burning a hole through people's wallets before you admit you were wrong. And if you're going to hike rates, maybe don't do it so fast that businesses start dropping like flies. Just a thought. But let's not pin all the blame on Lagarde, because the real culprits are the governments that prop up this technocratic circus. The ECB doesn't operate in a vacuum, it's a tool of government policy, and European governments have been complicit in driving the Eurozone into a recessionary abyss. Let's look at the evidence. First, fiscal policy. While the ECB was busy printing money, national governments failed to use the low interest rate environment to invest in productivity-enhancing infrastructure, education, or green energy. Instead, many clung to outdated austerity measures. Germany, I'm looking at you, while others, like Italy, racked up debt without structural reforms. Italy's debt-to-GDP ratio hit 147% in 2025, IMF, making it a ticking time bomb for the Eurozone. Meanwhile, the EU's much-hyped recovery fund, launched post-COVID, has been mired in bureaucratic delays, with only 40% of funds disbursed by mid-2025, European Commission. The result? A Eurozone economy that's woefully unprepared for the challenges of the 21st century. Second, energy policy, or rather, the lack of it. Europe's dependence on imported energy, particularly Russian gas until 2022 and now LNG from volatile global markets, has left the continent vulnerable to price shocks. Energy prices in the EU surged 25% year-on-year in 2025, Eurostat, hammering businesses and households. And what have governments done? Subsidized energy bills in a desperate bid to buy votes, while failing to invest in long-term solutions like nuclear or renewables. France, for example, has delayed its nuclear reactor upgrades, leaving it exposed to blackouts this winter, RTE, October 2025. This isn't just incompetence, it's criminal negligence. The result of all this government mismanagement? A Eurozone economy that's careening toward recession, with the ECB as the hapless co-pilot. And now, Lagarde wants to jump ship to the WEF, leaving the mess for someone else to clean up. It's the economic equivalent of a hit and run. Hey, European governments, quick question, if you're going to treat the ECB like your personal ATM, maybe don't be surprised when the economy ends up in the gutter. And if you're going to subsidize energy bills, maybe invest in some wind turbines instead of just praying for cheaper LNG. Just a thought. Finally, let's talk about the WEF itself, because Lagarde's potential move isn't just a personal scandal, it's a window into the globalist clown show that's been exacerbating economic inequality and instability for decades. Klaus Schwab, the WEF's founder, stepped down in April 2025 amid allegations of financial misconduct, leaving behind a legacy of elitism and empty promises. The WEF loves to tout buzzwords like Great Reset and stakeholder capitalism, but what has it actually achieved? Let's look at the data. Global income inequality has worsened over the past decade, with the top 1% capturing 38% of global wealth growth between 2010 and 2025, while the bottom 50% got just 2%, World Inequality Report 2025. Meanwhile, corporate tax avoidance, facilitated by the very globalist policies the WEF champions, costs governments $500 billion annually, Tax Justice Network, 2025. And let's not forget the WEF's cozy relationship with big tech, big pharma, and other monopolies, which have crushed small businesses and eroded economic resilience. The WEF isn't a solution to our economic problems, it's a symptom of the disease. And now, Lagarde wants to join this circus. It's the economic equivalent of jumping from the frying pan into the fire. But hey, at least she'll have a nice villa to cry into her champagne when the global economy implodes. Hey, Klaus, quick question, if the WEF is all about improving the state of the world, why does the world look like a dumpster fire? And if you're so great at managing finances, why did your own board kick you out? Just a thought. So, there you have it, folks, the Lagarde WEF drama isn't just a juicy scandal, it's a microcosm of everything wrong with our global economy. From elitist revolving doors to central bank mismanagement, from government incompetence to globalist excess, this story lays bare the systemic failures driving us toward recession. And the worst part? The clowns running the show, Lagarde, Schwab, and the technocratic elite, aren't the ones who'll suffer. It's you, the everyday folks and finance pros, who'll pay the price in higher prices, lower wages, and a weaker economy. But here's the good news, knowledge is power. By exposing these clowns and their circus, we can demand better policies, better leaders, and a better economic future. So, share this video, hit that like button, and subscribe to Boss Economics World for more no-holds-barred economic truth. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and never trust a clown in a suit. This has been Boss Economics World, where the only thing more inflated than Lagarde's ego is the Eurozone's inflation rate. See you next time.